वोट को लेना घर से सीनियर सिटीजन्स ऑफ पीडब्ल्यूडीज का, और इसको हम आने वाले इलेक्शंस में और इसमें लगातार सुदृढ़ करते आने वाले इलेक्शंस में और इसमें लगातार सुदृढ़ करते रहे.
Coming to the inclusive elections,
coming to the inclusive elections,
very critical in
connecting with the youth,
which is very critical
all the
in
elections,
case of
but more so in Karnataka.
all the elections, but more so in Karnataka
youth and urban.
I'll tell you how.
Youth and
So the first time voters in
Karnataka, because of our special effort, as I just
because of our
has special effort, as I
from
just
18 to 19
has increased
by 9
from 18 to
19
lakhs.
by 9.17
and the
lakhs.
young electors gender ratio,
And the
which was
young
low,
electors gender
at
ratio
720 has increased,
which was
to
low.
720 has
It's a
increased
jump
to
of 100%.
820
Means
it's a
we
jump
have
of
been able
100%. So means
get
we have
more
been
and more
able to
girls
in the age of
get
18 to
more
19
and more girls
registered
in the
in
age of 18
our
to 19
electoral rolls.
registered
So
in
it's
in our
far
electoral
more
rolls.
gender
Far more
sensitive now. Gender
and
sensitive now.
all young voters who are
And
turning 18
Yes,
all young
by
voters who are
1st of
turning
April
18
2023.
yes by 1st
will
of
be able
April
to vote in this
2023
coming election. So this
will be
again
able to vote in this
आपके
coming
माध्यम से मैं
election.
इसको
This
फिर से
again
बताना चाहता हूँ. आपके माध्यम से मैं
कमीशन
इसको
के
फिर से
एफर्ट
बताना
से 4 क्वालिफाइंग
के
डेट्स
एफर्ट से 4 क्वालिफाइंग डेट्स का
कि हर क्वार्टर की
अमेंडमेंट
लॉ में हुआ था.
तो हमने
हर
एडवांस
quarter
में
की first
एप्लीकेशन
जो लेने का
हमने
प्रोसेस शुरू
एडवांस
किया
में एप्लीकेशन
उसमें
लेने का प्रोसेस शुरू
1
किया.
अप्रैल को जो लोग उसमें
1 अप्रैल को जो होने वाले हैं उनकी पिटीशंस हमारे पास पहले
18
से
years
आके
के होने वाले
हैं. उनकी पिटीशंस
और
हमारे पास पहले
वो
से
भी
आके
लोग
रखी हैं. और
41,000
वो भी लोग
ऐसे हैं
41,000
because of this change in
ऐसे हैं
amendment would be able
जो
to
because
cast
of
their
this
vote.
change in amendment
Otherwise they would have to
cast their
wait.
vote.
They would have
Otherwise
waited
they
for
would
the
have to
next
wait.
year 1st of January.
They would have waited
to
for
become
the next
eligible.
year 1st of January.
So this is
to
the
become
power of that
eligible.
amendment, which
So this is the power of that amendment.
I just wanted to tell you.
And
I've just
youth
wanted to
participation
and
youth
the electoral
participation,
process,
as you know,
in the
brings
electoral
in
process,
the required
as you
energy
know,
and rhythm.
brings in the
Yielding to a
required
more
energy and
vibrant
rhythm
and
yielding to a more
argumentative
vibrant
electoral
and
process. Participative electoral process.
which is
Participative electoral
a very
process,
healthy
which
sign
is-
for the democracy.
Which is again
And as
very
our
healthy
National
sign for the
Voters
democracy.
Day
And as
theme
our
was-
National Voters Day,
it is
theme was
there is nothing like voting.
It is
So this is what we are
there is nothing like
popularizing
voting.
amongst the
So
youth.
this is what we are
and
popularizing
through you
amongst
also
and
requesting
also
that they-
when we have taken so much of
requesting
effort to make them
that they-
voters,
when we have taken
let
so
them
much of
also
effort to make them
respond
voters by coming
let them
to the
also
polling
respond
stations on the date
by
which we'll
coming to
announce
the
now.
polling stations on
Coming
the
to
date
the
which we'll
particularly
announce now.
vulnerable tribal groups.
Coming to the particularly
as are again a
vulnerable
human face
tribal
and an
groups,
inclusive
as are
agenda
again a
for
human
the
face and
electoral
an
rolls.
inclusive
The purity
agenda for the electoral
and
rolls.
the inclusiveness,
The purity
and the health of electoral
and the
rolls is one of the
inclusiveness
focus
and the
of
health of
Commission.
electoral rolls is one of the
more so
focus
this year.
of the commission.
So there are two
more so
PVTGs
this
in
year.
Karnataka. So there are two
Kurva
PV and Koraga tribes. And the total population is in 46,852 and 18 plus is 30,507. And you would be happy to know that we have been able to enroll 100%. Primitive, these two PVTGs. और इनके लिए 40 एथेनिक बूथ भी हम बना रहे हैं ताकि वो अपने वैल्यू में अपने तरीके से they feel happy participating in our elections. Similarly for transgenders, total transgenders in the state as per the records of the department concerned is 42,756 and we have been able to enroll through our outreach in our process 41,312, which is again almost complete. कुछ ऐसे भी लोग हैं जो अपने आप को इलेक्टोरल रोल में एज ट्रांसजेंडर मार्क नहीं कराना चाहते. हमारी उनसे अपील है कि अगर ऐसे कुछ लोग छूट गए हैं तो जिस फॉर्म में जिस सेंसिटिविटीज के साथ वो अपने आप को अटैच मार्क कराना चाहते हैं हम उसमें एक कदम उनसे आगे बढ़ के उनकी मदद करेंगे और उनको ऐड करेंगे. नाउ आफ्टर वोटर्स टू गिव यू ए फील एंड ए ओवरव्यू ऑफ द पोलिंग स्टेशंस. There are 58,282 polling stations in the state of Karnataka, of which 20,866 are urban. And I'll tell you what special efforts are required for these urban area per polling stations. Average electors per polling stations comes to 883, and we'll be doing as usual the 50% webcasting, which comes to 29,140. On all these sensitive booths which have been identified, we take 4-5 measures. Either there would be a CAPF, or there would be webcasting, or there would be a micro observer. It's a combination, and cumulatively, through a combination of all of this, we tend to put more vigor and resilience sensitive booths. For enhanced voter experience, how do we ensure that voters feel happy, want to come to the booth and take part in the festival of democracy? There would be close to 1320 polling stations which would be managed exclusively by the women. ये भी उनके हर इलेक्शन में हम कर रहे हैं, उनके एक एम्पावरमेंट का भी पार्ट है. There is a feeling that yes, we can do it, and election exercises in the even remote places, there were booths in the recently held elections which were all managed by the women, including the security personnel. और इसी तरीके से 240 पोलिंग स्टेशंस वुड बी मॉडल पोलिंग स्टेशन, जिसमें इको फ्रेंडली और ग्रीन बूथ्स उनको बनाएंगे. और ये भी एक नया प्रयास शुरू किया है कि जब यूथ नहीं आते हैं वोटिंग में, तो हम पोलिंग स्टेशंस को भी अपने यूथ जो एम्प्लॉयज़ हैं उनसे मैनेज करें. तो जो भी यंगेस्ट एम्प्लॉयज़ हैं, जिस डिस्ट्रिक्ट में जो भी अपॉइंटमेंट्स रिसेंट हुए हैं, उन्हीं को ट्रेन करके उनको भी एम्पावर कर रहे हैं. तो इसलिए 224 such booths would be set up, which would be managed by only the youngest possible the employees of the government, and 100 booths would be managed purely by the persons with disability. We have started another attempt from the last 3 elections, which is an ongoing effort, that we want to make now the availability of AMF almost permanent in all these schools. And here in Karnataka, we are progressing quite well. As you would see on the slide, we are almost 98-97% in terms of all the parameters, which are ramps, toilets, electricity. I am sure that, and hopefully, in this election, the time is still there till the elections polling stations are prepared. Whatever 1 or 2% in each category is left, we have emphasized to the state government, for which we have got a quite firm assurance that they will try and convert 100% facilities in all these schools on a permanent basis. And if this happens, which I am sure, which we are all sure would happen, that's a goal to aspire for the elections coming during the current years, in the later this year, and also the general election. So friends, now coming to the urban apathy. This is one area, as I said, that in Karnataka the areas of concerns would be different. So urban apathy is one, and money power is another, which will come to after this. So in urban apathy, the total voter turnout in the state is 72.4 in 2018. Against this, as you know, the overall country, if you look at the 2019 general elections, तो जो 20 टॉप के कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसीज हैं जिनमें सबसे कम वोटिंग हुई, उनमें से 9 अर्बन एरिया में, इसके नाम यहाँ दिए हैं, मैं ज़्यादा नहीं पढ़ना चाहता, but they are in the top 20. And if you look at the Karnataka, तो जहाँ 72% वोटिंग है, वहाँ बेंगलोर के साउथ, नॉर्थ, सेंट्रल और बंगलौर में वो वोटिंग काफ़ी कम है. 57, 51, 53, 55, 57 as against 72. And another disturbing trend is that it is reducing even from the earlier election, 2013 election. It was even more in 2013. It is reduced in 2018. So when we went there, we did call a large number of universities, students, and talk to them. And then we also decided that in addition to the awareness activities like the electoral literacy clubs and the voluntary action forums, we'll also do because the Karnataka and Bangalore happens to be the knowledge city and the IT city of the country. So why don't we take advantage of their expertise? So So we requested the IT sector, and through you we want to thank that IASC came forward, and they are doing an electhon. Instead of hackathon, we are saying it electhon. For what? They say, we are saying that how to enhance the participation of urban and youth. Can we technologically connect to them more? Can we do outreach in a different way? And how to ensure the registration of new voters more and more? We don't have to work so hard. Is there a problem with our software? Is there a way we can motivate them to do it? How can, from the universities, or from the colleges, schools rather, from the 12th, almost everybody becomes 18. 12 years, 12th class when you pass, plus 5 if you add, so mostly 17, 17 and a half and 18. तो आप वोट तो देना शुरू कर रहे हैं, बट आपको एक कमिटमेंट की जरूरत है. तो इस इलेक्थॉन में हमने ये भी रखा है कि डिवाइस ए सॉल्यूशन दैट हाउ कैन इट बूस्ट वोटर टर्नआउट ऑन द इलेक्शन डे. और उसका भी एक मेथड हमने और अपनाया, वो भी आपको मैं अभी आगे बताऊंगा. ये कितनी इंस्टीट्यूट्स हमारे साथ इसमें जुड़ गई हैं. इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी, इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ साइंस, large number of startups, large number of IT professionals. So we are thankful to all of them. And 47% have added on working on how to do the registration free. Some are working easily. Some are working with us on how to make the youth turn out on the day of election. So this result we will again share with everybody when it comes, the solutions when they are given, and जो आने वाले इलेक्शन से उसके लिए हम लोग समझते हैं कि ये एक हमें ऐसी टेक्नोलॉजी या ऐसी आउटरीच बताएगा जो उनकी समझ में आती है, बिकॉज इट्स ए प्लेस वेयर यू हैव मोस्ट ऑफ द एजुकेटेड यूथ and the urban areas. As regards the candidates, you are all aware, just to repeat the same thing, the know your candidate and the affidavits, all this are available on through the technology. Knowing the candidate is possible through the Know Your Candidate application, and for political parties, these applications are helping them to file the nominations online and to also apply for the entitlements which they have in terms of passes or in terms of booking the grounds for the election rallies, etc. And it is all strictly, everyone has been instructed to follow first in फर्स्ट आउट प्रिंसिपल. जिसने पहले अप्लाई किया उसका डिजिटल ट्रेल उसमें रहेगा. ऐसा नहीं कि अप्लाई एक पार्टी ने किया और आपने दूसरी पार्टी को जगह दे दी. नहीं, इट इज़ ए फेयर एंड लेवल प्लेइंग फील्ड विच दे हैव टू एंश्योर. सी विजिल ऐप की काफ़ी प्रचार कर्नाटका के इलेक्शन में किया है, बिकॉज ये वहाँ बहुत रिलेवेंट है. बिकॉज what new challenge we found in Karnataka is, in addition to the youth and urban apathy, is the money power. So this is being popularized a lot, and I'll share with you even before MCC what had happened. MCC will come in force from today, but when we went there, I'll show you, just because of our sincerity on this subject and telling the district officials and enforcement agencies what is the result. I'll show you that. So before coming to that, just to narrate that in recently held elections, total number of polling stations are given here, and there was no repolling. So we want to carry forward this trend: no violence, no repolling, and no और EVM भी बच गई, उनको भी गाली वाली ज़्यादा नहीं पड़ी. सो मतलब उसी चीज़ को आगे बढ़ाने हुए हमने वहाँ काफ़ी कोशिश की है कि जितने भी पोलिंग स्टेशंस हैं उनमें आप ऐसे प्रोसेसेस को अपनाएंगे, डिस्ट्रिक्ट मजिस्ट्रेट्स आर ऑन द जॉब, दैट they make the experience for the voter very good, so that they are encouraged to come. And some are working even on applications where if we can tell in advance the queue, so that you can plan your visit to the polling station and avoid standing on the thing. This is also a work in progress. The seizures in the earlier, in these 5 elections, just to tell you the kind of rigor and emphasis जो elections को inducement free कराने में किया जा रहा है, 5 elections जो अभी होके चुके हैं, उनमें 18 और 17 में जो इससे पहले हुए थे, 43 करोड़ के अगेंस्ट में 1028 करोड़ का सीजर था. एंड इसमें ड्रग सीजर्स, बिकॉज वी आर सेइंग लिकर, ड्रग, मनी, फ्रीबीज एंड ड्रग इन पर्टिकुलर, बिकॉज वो पूरी की पूरी सोसाइटी को और बच्चों को खराब करने की उनमें क्षमता है. सो all enforcement agencies, we have said that there is a absolute strict vigil you have to have on movement of any kind of material which can induce the elections, and fairly. And I'll show you what has happened. We are strengthening our teams in Karnataka to curb the misuse of money power. From 1,900 in 2018, we are increasing to 2,400. These are the teams which will have the sensitive constituencies, expenditure observers we are increasing, assistant observers, flying squads, and all to put extra pressure and make it clear to all political parties and candidates that money power they have to just zero tolerance, which we are showing from our sides. And just to tell you that the state has 19 districts. Total 171 interstate checkposts are being operationalized for this purpose, where excise department, commercial tax department, police department, and even the forest department in areas where the forests are there and there are checkposts. They may not be the highways or the state ways, but there are the points of entry. All places there would be a strict vigil. And nudging towards ethical elections, there are exercises which are being done with the awareness which is being done. Say, for instance, this is by the commercial department. And just to tell you, it's another, when we talked about it in Nagaland, from civil society, there were groups formed in the villages, and villagers came out resisting anybody who was trying to bribe the voters in the villages. I'm repeating it here just to encourage and thank those citizens who have helped us in curbing the menace of money power. And you see, we have directed all the enforcement agencies, which include the state police, state excise, narcotics, coast guards, ED, airport authority, state level committees, bankers committee. What is their role, just in brief? जितने एयरपोर्ट्स हैं वहाँ और जितने लैंडिंग एयर स्ट्रिप्स हैं, even choppers, they will all landings will be checked, so that there is no way that they can be used for movement of any kind of what you call the money or something. इसी तरह से जो check posts और special highways which have been identified, and godowns which are in under the commercial taxes department, warehouses, liquor, all have been mapped, so that there is no increase or a trend of goods coming there. Similarly for freebies, eBay bills are being checked to see in any particular district if there is an increase of the material getting entry to those particular districts. SLBC, we have also banned, requested all the banks, directed them actually, that no movement of the vans which carry cash to fill the ATMs will happen during the late hours, so that they cannot be used. At times, such vans are used for carrying cash. All that has been stopped. In terms of what happened in Karnataka after our last visit, which was, see just some pictures. Even MCC has not come into force. And this is across the parties. freebies, cash, liquor, all that have been started already having been seized, and it is already crossed almost what was seized during the elections last time. And I want to thank the district administration and enforcement agencies on this, because having by and large tackled the issue of muscle power in the elections, this is now the focus and the time that we handle the money power also. And before MCC comes into being, because हमने उनको यही कहा कि MCC का मुहूर्त क्यों देखना है, आपके पास तो सेक्शंस हैं आईपीसी की, अगर कोई भी ब्राइब के लिए वोटर्स को इंड्यूस करने के लिए अगर अभी से सामान लेके आ रहा है, उस पर कैंडिडेट का नाम लिखा हुआ है बैग के ऊपर, कुकर के ऊपर रखे हुए हैं ये गोडाउन, इसमें देखिए आप लिखे हुए हैं, नाम भी लिखे हुए हैं, तो उसको सीज करके उस पर क्रिमिनल केस करने के लिए एमसीसी की जरूरत क्यों है? एंड थैंकफुली ऑल ऑफ देम हैव रिस्पॉन्डेड एंड वी आर श्योर दैट दिस विल पीक नाउ. And again, through your medium, we want to say that citizens also help us by using C-Vigil more and more, and it is our guarantee that in 100 minutes we will not only reach there, we will also report back saying as to what had happened. So friends, now coming to what you have been waiting for. The schedule for the Karnataka Assembly elections for 2023 would be like this. The Gazette notification would be issued on 13th of April. Last date of making nominations would be 20th of April. Date of scrutiny would be 21st April 2023. After that, the withdrawal of the candidature can be up to 24th of April. The polling will take place on 10th of 5 in single phase, and day of counting would be 13th of May. So this is the schedule for the Karnataka elections. There are also some by-elections which are due in the country in various legislative assemblies and parliamentary constituencies. So we are simultaneously announcing the by-elections also. So the by-elections will take place for the assembly in Odisha, Jharsuguda, in UP, in Suar, UPAC 34, 395 Chanabe in UP, Soiyong in Meghalaya in 23, and also in the parliamentary constituency number 4 in Jalandhar, Punjab. So this will fill up all our vacancies till February 2023. So this is the schedule, and I once again, before ending, through the friends from media, I want to appeal to all the voters of Karnataka, young, urban areas, rural area, PBTGs, women, transgender, PWDs, senior citizens, to please come forward and take part in the festival of democracy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We will now be able to take questions.
First ball of the 7th over.
ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಅಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲೂ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಈ ಸಲ ಟಾಟಾ IPL ಕೇವಲ ಜಿಯೋ ಸಿನಿಮಾದಲ್ಲಿ.
honorable judges, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm good evening to each and all of you. We are to commence the program in a short while. May I kindly request the honorable dignitaries to now occupy the dais. In absolute silence, the Lord sees, hears, and speaks. Let us commence today's program with a silent prayer. Let us also offer our prayers in respect of our always beloved Senior Advocate K.P. Dandapani. Thank you. We will commence the program. On behalf of the High Court of Kerala, Honorable Mr. Justice Vinod Chandran, Senior Judge, High Court of Kerala, will now welcome Honorable Mr. Justice U.U. Lalit with a bouquet of flowers. Advocate Naveen T, Secretary, Kerala High Court Advocates Association, will now welcome this august gathering.
Honorable Mr. Justice U.U. Lalit, former Chief Justice of India, Honorable Mr. Justice Bachu Kurian Thomas, Judge High Court of Kerala, Honorable Judges attending this function, Senior Advocate Ravindranatha Menon, Senior Counsel for Taxes, Government of India, Senior Advocate Jaju Babu, Patron, Constitution Debate Club, Advocate Biju S, Vice President of the Association, former judges, senior advocates, other dignitaries of the dais, my dear lawyer friends, staff of the registry, students, clerks, ladies and gentlemen, wish you all a lovely evening. We are assembled here to attend a lecture on the topic, Evolution of Independence of Judiciary as a Basic Feature of the Constitution. We are fortunate to have with us Honorable Mr. Justice U.U. Lalit, former Chief Justice of India, who have graciously consented to deliver a lecture and to take us to the breadth and length of the subject. I, on behalf of the Kerala High Court Advocates Association and also on behalf of the Constitution Debate Club and all who gathered here, most courteously welcome you, sir, to this august gathering. I request Advocate Sri Hari Rao to kindly come on the dais to give away a bouquet to our chief guest. We all knew that this program is organized in commemoration of Golden Jubilee of Keshavan Bharati case. With the permission of the chair, I take this opportunity to inform all that Sri Keshavananda Bharati is the maternal uncle of Advocate Sri Hari Rao. Sri Keshavananda Bharati, a name which is not just familiar to the lawyer community or law students, but a must-known fact over 5 decades and years to come. Now, we have with us Honorable Mr. Justice Bechu Kurian Thomas, Judge High Court of Kerala, to give introductory remarks on the topic. I, on behalf of the Kerala High Court Advocate Association and also on behalf of the Constituent Debate Club and all who gathered here, most lovingly welcome you, sir, to this wonderful event. I, on behalf of the association, CDC and all gathered here, extend a pleasant welcome to Senior Advocate Ravindranatha Menon, Senior Counsel for Taxes, Government of India, Senior Advocate Jaju Babu, Patron CDA, and Advocate Biju as Vice President of the association to this function. I wholeheartedly welcome all the honorable judges, former judges, senior advocates, lawyer friends, staff of the registry, students, clerks, and all who assembled here to make this function a meaningful one. Thank you.
Today's program, jointly conducted by the Kerala High Court Advocates Association and the Constitution Debate Club, commemorates the 50th year of a celebrated judgment, Keshavananda Bharati versus State of Kerala. Constitution Debate Club was conceived as an active platform for discourses, lectures, and interactive sessions on legal and law-related issues. The club, which is a part of Cochin Law Review Association, constituted under the Travancore Cochin Scientific, Literary and Societies Act 1955, is a prominent presence for intellectual interactions in this High Court. Under the patronage of Senior Counsel P.K. Ravindranath Menon and Senior Counsel K. Jaiju Babu, and with the guidance of Honorable Mr. Justice Bechu Kurian Thomas, who was an active member of this club till his Lordship's elevation, this club functions as an impartial and non-political intellectual presence with the help and support of Kerala High Court Advocates Association. May I now request Honorable Mr. Justice Bechu Kurian Thomas to offer introductory remarks.
Honorable Mr. Justice U. Lalit, former Chief Justice of India, other distinguished members on the dais, brothers and sisters, and my dear fellow lawyers, my dear members of the bar, ladies and gentlemen. The event organized at the auspices of the Kerala High Court Advocates Association and the Constitutional Debate Club requires great appreciation. A constitutional court having a constitutional debate club is worth mentioning. And this event is one of the many events that they've been organizing in the past years. We are really fortunate to have Justice U. Lalit to address us today. In 1967, when the Supreme Court declared in Golaknath's case that fundamental rights cannot be amended by the Parliament, a battle on the extent of powers to amend the Constitution began. The tussle culminated with the judgment of the largest bench of the Supreme Court, deciding the longest case ever fought in any court in the world, regarded as the greatest constitutional case ever decided by the Supreme Court of India. The judgment in Keshavananda Bharati introduced into the Indian constitutional law the doctrine that Parliament cannot alter the basic structure of the Constitution, even by a constitutional amendment. Keshavananda Bharati case became the taproot of a colossal tree called the Constitution of India. While letting the tree grow, extending its shades to all those within it, the taproot holds it strong and keeps it grounded without letting it fall down, even amidst typhoons and cyclones that come hitting against it. On April 24, 1973, by a wafer-thin majority of 7:6, which was brought in by a view of the majority, the basic structure doctrine evolved. To overcome the effect of Keshavananda Bharati case, the 42nd Amendment to the Constitution was brought in. The amendment gave unrestrained power to the Parliament to amend any part of the Constitution with absolute restraint on the power of judicial review. The doctrine of basic structure found its real utterance in 1980 in the Minerva Mills case, when the Supreme Court struck down that part of the 42nd Amendment to the Constitution as infringing the basic structure of the Constitution. It is remarkable, and it is a beauty of the doctrine, that what was introduced to destroy it was demolished by the very same doctrine itself. These decisions highlight the importance of an independent judiciary in the country. Our country learned from experience that the bedrock of every democracy is the rule of law, and an independent judiciary is a fount of the rule of law. Article 50 of the Constitution specifically obligates the state to separate the judiciary from the executive in public services. An independent judicial system is a need of every state which upholds the values of liberty, justice, and equality. By an independent judicial system, what is meant is not just a separate establishment, but an establishment with the ability to take decisions fearlessly, uninfluenced by any other factor other than the Constitution and law. An independent appointment process in the matter of selection of judges, devoid of political, religious, or other considerations, is therefore a sine qua non for an independent judiciary. In this context, we must remind ourselves, it is neither the Parliament nor the judiciary that is supreme, but it is the Constitution that is supreme. And our Constitution contemplates as its basic structure an independent judiciary. Justice U.U. Lalit has been a champion of the independence of judiciary. He has been a voice against intrusion into the independence which we enjoy as a judicial system. 2 months ago, I had the pleasant experience of attending one of his sessions on constitutional law at the National Judicial Academy. It was really a pleasant experience. His erudite and inspiring lecture kept all of us at the Academy spellbound. His mastery of the subject was truly reflected in that session. In this golden jubilee year of Keshavananda Bharati case, we are certainly blessed to be able to hear the master himself, that too on the topic, evolution of independence of judiciary as a basic feature of the Constitution. Thank you.
Honorable Mr. Justice U.U. Lalit, born into a legacy, left a legacy when he demitted office as the Honorable Chief Justice of India on 8th of November 2022. His Lordship's remarkable innings in the field of law commenced with his enrollment in 1983 and continued through his practice in the High Courts of Bombay and Delhi and the Supreme Court, where he was designated as the senior counsel in 2004. Trusted by the bench and bar, his Lordship was appointed as amicus curiae in many important matters. His Lordship was appointed as the Special Public Prosecutor for CBI to conduct trial in all 2G matters under the orders of the Supreme Court. His Lordship was appointed as the Judge of the Supreme Court in 2014 and as the Chief Justice of India on 27th of August 2022. An erudite judge, a gentle gentleman, compassionate to a cause, and committed to the learning of law. His Lordship continues his love for law by being a faculty in prominent law schools. May I now invite Honorable Mr. Justice U.U. Lalit, former Chief Justice of India, to deliver lecture on the topic of the day.
Honorable Justice Bechu Kurian Thomas, Senior Advocate Mr. Babu, Senior Advocate Mr. Menon, Mr. Biju, Learned Advocate. These are the office bearers who are concerned with the organization which has successfully been running this lecture series. The Honorable Justice Vinod Chandran and other honorable judges of the High Court, the senior advocates, junior advocates who are present in large number, ladies and gentlemen. 50 years since the celebrated judgment in Keshwanand Bharati was delivered by the Supreme Court. The gentleman came from this state, God's own country, and has given us great fulcrum on which the entire jurisprudence has since then developed. I also had the privilege to get associated with another milestone in environmental law, which is T.N. Godavarman, another gentleman coming from this state. These are celebrated cases which have nurtured and developed jurisprudential thinking. And one of the basic ideas which Justice Thomas dealt with just now is the takeaway from this judgment that says that the inherent limitation on the power of the constituent power to amend the Constitution, the power of the Parliament to amend the Constitution, is circumscribed by certain theories that you can amend everything but not the basic structure of the Constitution, something which is considered to be so basic for the existence of not only the country, the communities, and even the individual. So these basic structures or the facets of basic structure comprise of various nuances, like the democratic principle that we have subscribed to, adult suffrage, one man, one vote, periodic intervention by the electorate to select their representatives, the socialist republic, that the apparatus that we have devised for ourselves, and among other things, there's a concept such as independence of judiciary. There are various articles which Justice Thomas mentioned just now, which as a goal guide us in one direction, and that is to have independent judiciary. Some of the democratic countries, starting right from Marbury versus Madison, they have always insisted that the power of the judicature to annul any instrument of law or executive action is a very sacrosanct power, and that is something which is directly derivable from the basic document, that's the American Constitution. We have also been guided by that ethos, those principles. And therefore, the structure of our constitution also incorporates various segments and especially the checks and balances. But an issue had arisen, and that is precisely why the entire Supreme Court had to sit and consider the issue whether, in its constituent power, whether the Parliament could amend any provision of the Constitution or whether there can be read some inherent limitations within which that power has to be exercised. And the celebrated judgments in Keshwanand Bharati, which decided the matter 7:6 by a very slender majority, never has since then the full court of the Supreme Court ever sat, except for one instance where perhaps I think 13 judges had again sat just to consider whether the matter requires to be reviewed or not, but the matter was completely abandoned. The largest bench since then was TMA Pai, which was 11 judges. What this judgment laid down, though not in clear and precise terms, on an ideological plane it was accepted that there are certain features of the Constitution which are so inviolable and which are so important for the very existence of the democracy in the country, and in order to help an individual to achieve the fullest of his potential, that those principles cannot be frittered away, cannot be amended, cannot be modified or substituted by something else. In today's discussion, we will consider two facets of the matter, because the moment we say judiciary, it is the organizational structure, the constitution, or what constitutes what we normally call the superior judiciary. So therefore the first part is the organization, who constitutes the court, how the judges are appointed, how the judges then have to take their seats, and what is the paramount consideration. The second part is, of course, the powers to be exercised by the judicature. If it is accepted norm that we go by the idea of separation of powers and the basic job to interpret the Constitution, to interpret the laws, and to give down a binding judgment, which judgment must thereafter guide the execution of everything, in fact, all your actions thereafter. If that's the power that we give to the judicature, the thinking has always developed that there must be complete independence so far as the functional issues are concerned. And those functional issues normally get coined as what we normally say rule of law, or the extent of powers, whether those powers could be curtailed. Rule of law was specifically referred to as one of the basic features in the Constitution by some of the judges who constituted the bench. But our discussion is that how this ethos has since then developed. And I will deal with just 2 or 3 cases on the point and then move on to the other segment. The 2 articles which were incorporated, one by perhaps 32nd Amendment and the other by 42nd Amendment. One incorporated a provision in the Constitution which enabled the state to come out with a law dealing with administrative tribunals in the state of Andhra Pradesh. And one of the sub-articles, that is 243D, into bracket 3, and then into bracket 5, two sub-articles dealt with one issue. Number one, sub-article 3 said that such a law made by the state may empower or may confer jurisdiction upon the tribunal which is exercisable or to be exercised by all the courts except the Supreme Court of India. Which is to say that apart from preserving the normal jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, whether it is under 32 or 136 or any such thing, so far as the other jurisdictional issues are concerned, perhaps the power can be conferred upon the tribunals to be put in place by virtue of the power so given under this article, sub-article 3. Sub-article 5 said that the determination made by such tribunals shall be subject to confirmation by the executive. Proviso to that sub-article 5 then empowered the state that such a law made by the state could as well give the power to the executive to substitute its own findings in place of the finding rendered by the tribunal. That is to say that the power of the executive to modify the finding rendered by the tribunal. This is what the amendment thought of. Why we are going into this issue? Because Keshwanand Bharati said that the power of the parliament to amend hereafter, of course there is the other facet of the matter, which is that Coelho principle, which I'll come to it later. But the power of the parliament hereafter shall be subject to what is called inherent limitations, which are basic features of the Constitution, and one of them was rule of law, as laid down by the judgments on the point. This amendment came into force sometime in 74. Then in 76, 42nd Amendment came into force, which inter alia incorporated one more article, or rather two articles in the Constitution, again empowering the Parliament to enact a law, as a result of which, or with the help of which, central administrative tribunals could be put in place. These tribunals, now mark the difference or distinction. In 32nd Amendment, the provision simply said that the law can confer upon the tribunals powers exercisable by courts other than the Supreme Court. Now the amendment now speaks of that the Parliament can empower the tribunal to deal with, of course, everything which is supposed to be substitute for High Court, but it also said that the Parliament can, by law, exclude the jurisdiction of courts other than the Supreme Court. So mark the distinction or difference. Number one, first of all, in a very mild format to say that the provisions could empower the tribunal to exercise powers exercisable by courts other than the Supreme Court. And now you go a step further and say, very well, such a law can exclude the power which was exercisable by courts other than the Supreme Court. Next article gave the power to the Parliament to come out with tribunals dealing with various other issues in terms of which certain tribunals like Central Excise and Gold Appellate Tribunal and so on and so forth could be established, or in various states, some of the tribunals dealing with tax matters were established. Now, it so happened that the challenges to these amendments were heard by the same bench presided over by Justice Bhagwati, who was then the Chief Justice. By the time Justice Bhagwati had rendered a judgment in Minerva Mills, which was the bench presided over by Chief Justice Chandrachud, and Justice Bhagwati's judgment is actually a minority judgment, in which he inter alia said that of course rule of law is very sacrosanct, but we cannot be misunderstood to say that the Parliament is not empowered to put in place alternate or alternative institutional mechanism, quote unquote. This is the phrase which he uses in Minerva Mills. When the challenge is raised to both these amendments, 32nd and so far as this 42nd amendment, the matter concerning the administrative tribunals, including the challenge to the legislation which was brought in force as a result of that power, was dealt with by the court first, which is the celebrated judgment in Sampath Kumar. In Sampath Kumar, two judgments rendered, one by Justice Bhagwati, a concurring view, and the principal judgment is by Justice Ranganath Mishra, who later became the Chief Justice of the court. In that judgment, the very same expression which was used by Justice Bhagwati in Minerva Mills, that there can be alternative institutional mechanism, it became the fulcrum for the judgment to say that very well, High Court's jurisdiction may have been taken away or excluded, but equally efficacious jurisdiction has been conferred upon central administrative tribunals, and therefore the Parliament would be well within its competence to do so. The challenge in Sampath Kumar was thus negated. Soon thereafter, the challenge with regard to the other set of articles came up before the court, and that is P. Sambamurthy, another judgment by a constitution bench of the Supreme Court. Relying on Sampath Kumar, the bench in Sambamurthy, which is a judgment authored by Chief Justice Bhagwati again, they reject the theory or the submission that there cannot be exclusion of jurisdiction. So they accept that theory. So therefore, the challenge to sub-article 3 was negated. But so far as challenge to sub-article 5 was concerned, Justice Bhagwati says it is unheard of that the determination by a tribunal which is supposed to be a substitute for the High Court could be modified by the executive. He says this is shocking and this will be subversive of the principle of rule of law. So he put it on that quote unquote principle of rule of law, that by separation of powers we have accepted a mechanism where adjudication is the function of the judicature, or at best a substitute for that organ. But how can the executive, where The executive itself will be before the tribunal in the capacity as one of the parties to the dispute, can be conferred upon the power to set at naught the determination made by the tribunal. And therefore, P. Sambamurthy, sub-article 5, was held to be invalid. These two judgments actually chart out a course as to what exactly can be the modality when you are having a substitute for the regularly exercisable power by the superior court, including the High Court. Very well, then thereafter the issues came up, the doubts were expressed whether the Central Administrative Tribunal could go into the constitutional validity of some of the rules enacted by virtue of power conferred under Article 309. Doubts were expressed whether the tribunal is competent or not competent. Some of the judgments rendered by the Supreme Court did say that yes, the tribunal must, the moment you accept in theory that it's a substitute for the High Court, then it must have the requisite power. Very well, that's the second stage. A judgment by AP High Court was a path-breaking judgment in this direction. That judgment, the division bench of the High Court said, among other things,